Thank you. So, gentlemen, have a great show.
Good show.
Fireworks.
Oh.
Fireworks. Come on, fireworks. Right
Ooh.
now. Woo!
Ooh.
Explode, man,
I
explode.
can see energy won't be an issue tonight. This is quite lovely.
I had someone go this year too to a
Man,
meeting.
look at, oh, I see how big my hands are.
You're, oh, put your hands up against mine. Look at that. Look at that.
Living Clean, Living Well is a presentation of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness and is brought to you by Freedom from Addiction.
It's Sunday night. Welcome to Living Clean, Living Well, everyone. Really glad to have you along again tonight as we talk about spring. And spring is a time of renewal, it's a time of hope, it's a time of change. And in the world of addictions and substance abuse, when you make that decision to change your life and to get into recovery, now we have to start talking about maintaining that change. And that is going to be our subject tonight. And I have brought in two guests that absolutely worked beautifully together last December. Would you please welcome Don Krokock and Dr. Rick Cernick to the show. Gentlemen, good to see you back.
Please be here.
Thanks
Now,
for
when I
that.
say that they worked really well together, our phone lines, they really connected. You guys really did connect with our viewers. So we said right in the parking lot at the end of that last show that we had to do it again. So I'm so pleased that they are back with us. So what's been new? Don, let's start off with you.
Well, as you remember, hopefully, I'm a hepatitis C outreach worker in Niagara, work for the Niagara Health System. So I've been pretty busy doing that, working the front lines and you know, trying to get people to get in to get tested primarily, and also if they do end up being positive for hepatitis C, then I encourage people to, by all means, to please at least find out where your liver's at. You owe it to yourself to find out the extent of liver damage instead of putting it off. There's no such thing as remission with hepatitis C. If you have the disease, it's active, and you may not feel that you have any sort of symptoms or anything. It's frequently asymptomatic. However, it's not to be confused with it being in remission. Like I said, there's no such thing as remission.
Yeah.
So we need to get people in, we need to get them tested, and if they're positive, we need to find out where their liver's at, and then they can explore treatment options with their medical professional.
This is a real passion of yours from what I remember.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes,
why?
it is.
Why is that?
Well, quite honestly, I found out in 2008, in the fall of 2008, that I had, sometime in my past, I had become infected with hepatitis C. Probably in the 80s as a result of my drug use, and I mean, that's the best guess. And it was quite a shock to me at the time. In 2008, I had about 15 and a half years in recovery. And the last thing I expected then was to have a little ghost from my past to come back to sort of to haunt me. So it was a bit of a shock, but you know, it opened the doors of reality, if you will, to this whole big field of infectious diseases and hepatitis C in particular.
Yeah.
And it gave me the opportunity to expand my work from strictly from addictions counseling to also including work in the hepatitis C field. It's frequently related. So
Wonderful. Thanks
yeah,
for sharing
that's
that.
that's all I got there.
So now we got to get Dr. Rick into the conversation. Dr. Rick Cernick, he is a professor, and I'm going to brag on you here a little bit. He is a professor of renown. He is a mentor to many. You teach people how to be addiction counselors. Am I correct in
That's
this?
part of my responsibility.
Part of the
Absolutely.
responsibility.
Absolutely.
And yes, Don, go ahead.
Yes, my mentor.
Is he? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He's
That's how
written
we
8
met.
books. He's got number 9 and 10 on the way. Dr. Rick, it's good to see you back.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So what's been new with you?
Actually, I want to talk about an article I published. Just again, for those of you who are in AA groups or in self-help groups, a colleague of mine, she's a physical challenge, she's in a wheelchair. She attended an AA group as part of an assignment for class, and she couldn't get there. And so one of the issues, one of the communities we often miss out there who have a greater proportion of addiction issues are those people with physical challenges, disabilities, hearing impairments. So those of you who are running AA groups, NA group, Women with Sobriety, just make sure your group really is accessible. The title of the article is How Accessible Is My Group? And it's about how she couldn't maneuver her wheelchair into the meeting, which means she couldn't participate. So make sure that's part of your meeting agenda as well.
And you know what, you would think after everything that we've done with the ramps and the handicap parking and all that sort of stuff, that the issue still exists.
Yeah, and
It's
again,
not everything is accessible.
and it's accessible, and rooms often are. The building may be, but the room you're holding your meeting in. And the other one is hidden issues like hearing impairment.
Yes.
A huge issue among people who are hearing impaired. Is your room something that someone with a hearing limitation can still access? And because the conversation in those meetings are so important, the sharing of the fellowship is critical. So make sure when you have something important to say that everyone in the room. And as we get older, as Dawn and I, we get older, our hearing gets limited as well too. So something else just to consider as you're preparing for your meetings.
Say what? So our topic tonight is about, Dr. Rick Cernick had brought up the fact about spring, renewal, hope. It is a great time of year, isn't it?
And it's been a miserable winter.
Horrible.
It's such an easy to get down on yourself. It's to say you're not succeeding. You may have had a lapse or relapse, which is really, Don and I were talking earlier, is part of the change process.
Yes.
Very critical to it. And so it's to value your accomplishments and not just dwell, because when we're stuck inside, it's so easy to beat up on ourselves too. This is time, again, to renew, to look at our strength, to look at our accomplishments, and to feel good about where we've gone the last little while.
So then Don chimed in and said, I want to talk about
Well,
change.
about change, the process of change, but also about maintaining change. It's frequently easy to enact change. The difficulty lies in learning and then living that change. So, you know, keeping in mind that change is a process, not an event, it becomes really an exercise in finding that balance between knowledge and skill in applying it to your life so that you can be successful in recovery. And it frequently takes a few tries. You know, relapse is a part of the process, really, and it's a learning opportunity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an entirely negative event when one relapses. I mean, I used to say that I relapsed weekly for a few years, but it was all part of the accumulation, I think, of knowledge and motivation. So, yeah, change is is quite it's quite an evolved
Yeah,
topic.
it's a dynamic process.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. What are some of the first steps?
Well, it's interesting. You can talk about, Don can talk about the steps, but what people think is when they're recovering is that it's a straight line. You just stop drinking, stop drugging, and start getting better and better. But it's really not. The model we work from now is more like a corkscrew. Is you change a little bit, then you sort of accumulate that knowledge. Sometimes you slide back a little bit, gain knowledge from a lapse, hopefully not a relapse, but a lapse, learn it, move forward again too. So if people are thinking they're on a straight line, that's not the way it goes. It's slow and gradual. You think, and I'm going to talk about your case, how long it takes you to get a point of addiction. And then people want to get better in 21 days. It doesn't happen. You're absolutely right. It is a process of recovery.
Well, the 21-day concept of treatment, intensive treatment programs, now are primarily 18 to 21 days in duration. And they're really designed, in my mind, to say, okay, you've done treatment, off you go.
You're all better?
You're good. Well, you know, it's a process of gathering tools, gathering the information, and really just creating the very initial stages of a recovery. But by no means is it the be-all and end-all. It's just just one part of the bigger picture of this thing we call recovery. So.
Well, I knew that this was going to happen whenever these two gentlemen are on. Our phone lines light up. Are you ready to?
Sure.
I want to get in at least one phone call before we take our first break.
Sure.
So let's turn to our phones now. It's your turn. Our toll-free lines are open. And as you can see, we've already started getting phone calls. So folks, if you want to talk to Dr. Rick Cernick or Don Krokock tonight about your general questions about addictions or substance abuse, or maybe you want to talk a little bit about our topic, or any of the other things that these two gentlemen have brought up, please do pick up the phone and join in on the conversation. So let's take our first phone call tonight. Let's go to line 1, and Peter's calling in from Toronto. Hi there, Peter. You're first up tonight. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if my call is going to seem as though it's the most relevant to your topic tonight.
That's fine.
I'm not a regular viewer, so I'm not exactly sure how the show is structured, or whether or not it would have been better to call on another night or another occasion.
It's okay. Go ahead, Peter. We're here.
In any case, I just feel like I'm trapped in a situation like I've spent my whole life pretty much living it in vain, and I can't make my life work. You know, I'm not an addict, and I can say that definitively. I mean, my lifetime alcohol consumption would not fill a trash can, and I never do drugs. It's just that, I was born out of wedlock. My adopted parents put me in a group home when I was a teenager after I wrote a suicide note, and they got divorced a short while after, and I wound up out in the street with nothing. And, I've spent, like the last 30 years, just, living on my own and struggling, as far as I'm concerned, in vain for nothing. And I often feel like I would just have been better off if I, found whatever it takes to commit suicide, because either people would have learned an important lesson from losing me forever, or it would have proven the point that I was never wanted, if I'd never been missed, after I was gone. So
Peter, how are you feeling right now? Are you stable, Peter, or are you thinking of possibly doing harm to yourself?
Well, not in the immediate future, but I plan to commit suicide when I'm 48. I plan to commit suicide in my mid-60s, because I think that that's about as much longer as I can last. Because my life is...
So, Peter, my heart breaks for you, and I wish I wasn't hearing what I'm hearing tonight. This is a show about addictions and substance abuse, but it's also, if you need to reach out to us, I'm glad that you picked up the phone tonight. Do you want my guests to comment on what they have heard, or did you have a question for them? Do you want them just to comment, Peter? How best can we help you?
Well, all I really wanted to do is to be heard, because the thing is that, if it wasn't for people like Martin and Ashley Smith and, Jeffrey Baldwin and, almost anyone else you could mention who's like a headline naming victim, things wouldn't get better. These are all people like who either, were victims of involuntary of involuntary homicide or of suicide, and the world became better because people took notice of their absence. And
That's an excellent point, Peter, right there, is because of the individuals you mentioned, we now do have services. So, I mean, the question I want to ask you is, have you been to see a counselor? Have you been to talk to someone about your story? And as Don just said to me, about validation of your life experience, have you talked to anybody yet?
I've talked to many people, and no one is interested in what I have to say, mostly because I'm still alive. I think that my pain and my unhappiness would speak, would speak more volumes if I were dead, because people obviously don't care about the fact that I'm alive. No one cared about any of the people I mentioned while they were alive. They suffered in silence, in vain, for nothing, and then when they died, people suddenly started caring. And maybe if I committed suicide 30 years ago, maybe Martin and other people wouldn't have had to. Maybe they would have created the Office of Child Family Services and Welfare, or whatever the heck they call it, to look after children in the social service sector, years earlier. By virtue of having lost people like me. I mean, the whole system changed. They started letting people who couldn't read graduate from high school. They started trying to come up with anti-bullying strategies and gay straight alliances and all of these things to make people feel validated. I didn't, all of which was a response to people like me who had to suffer in silence, but because people like me continued to suffer in silence, without dying, that nothing was done until people started dying. I mean, years ago, before Martin and Ashley and Jeffrey died, the Toronto Sun ran a front page editorial with a huge font saying, we need some dead kids. It was a pissed off social worker complaining about how nothing in our society ever changes until vulnerable children die and people take notice of it.
Yeah.
And
Peter, if I could add something, you have been heard loud and clear, and you express yourself so well, and it sounds like you have so much in life to offer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, Don, did you want to talk to Peter?
Well,
and then I've got something to say.
Just one thing I would suggest, seeing as you're in Toronto, have you ever reached out to the good people at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH? Because I think that there would be people that would be very interested in working with you and listening to you and understanding your story and working with you to perhaps get through some of the issues that you're talking about here right now. And it might be a good place for you to turn to. That's CAMH, Center for Addiction and Mental Health.
And Rick, did you have a follow-up?
And again, I just want to reinforce the fact that I think you mentioned excellent points, is that people have suffered, and because of that, there have been services and programs put together. There's a very critical point for, not just for you, Peter, everyone listening out there. If you've gone to a counselor, it hasn't worked. We are not magicians.
Yeah.
You have to have that right match and right fit. So if something doesn't work for you, try something else. Please, there are all sorts of options, wonderful agencies out there. It is not Don or I could help all people out there. So if it doesn't work for you, consider other options.
Okay. And Peter, you keep mentioning Martin. I have a feeling you might mean my late brother-in-law, which was Martin Cruz. Martin did commit suicide because of the pain that he had. One day we'll know when we're in heaven and we can talk to him again, but no one knows what's going on in someone's mind. But I can tell you, because I have witnessed this, I have lived through the aftermath of a loved one's suicide. I have seen the devastating effects that it had, not only on the family, but his community and the people that he worked with and the people that he reached out to. And I can tell you without a word of a lie that there would be more done in Martin's honor if Martin was still here. No one had as much passion as my late brother-in-law, Martin Cruz. And my husband, Gary, who's Martin's brother, and I, and his family. His parents are elderly, but that they a few years ago were still quite active as well. We've done our best to keep his visions and his goals alive and his voice still heard. But I'll tell you, what we've managed to accomplish with Martin's passing is nowhere near what I know Martin could still accomplish while he was still on earth. So Peter, I commend you for picking up the phone tonight. A lot of people say suicide is not the answer. I can only give my opinion. Suicide is not the answer. And I know that maybe, Peter, please reach out to CAMH. Please reach out to another counselor. You are so well spoken, and I can hear the fire, the passion, and the energy in you. And I think you do have something to say. So please, Peter, try to get some help. And please, suicide is just not the answer. I don't know whether or not you believe in God. This is not a religious show, even though we're seen on CTS. We welcome all faiths. But, I often feel life or God, it doesn't matter what your preference is. You have a mission here on earth, and maybe you just haven't found it yet. So, Peter, thank you so much for picking up the phone tonight. You were heard here tonight on Living Clean, Living Well. We're going to take our first break here on the show, but when we come back, lots of your phone calls. Thanks for your patience, folks. We'll be back with more with Don Krokock and Dr. Rick Cernick.
It's scary to think that you're going to live the rest of your life without drugs and alcohol when it's all you've depended on. But there is hope. I knew I couldn't do it alone, and treatment allowed me the chance to ask for the help that I needed in order to believe that I could live a sober life. I got the help and support that I needed, and even now that I've left, I still have that support there.
Welcome back to Living Clean, Living Well, everybody. My guests tonight, Dr. Rick Cernick and Don Krokock. It's great to have them back with us, and I know you folks think so as well, because it must be Christmas again, because our phone lines have lit up like a Christmas tree. So let's get back to work. Let's go.
Right.
Back to our toll-free lines, folks. If you'd like to talk to these two gentlemen, addiction, substance abuse, trauma, they're here to help. So let's go to line 2, and calling from Cambridge tonight is Yvonne. Hi, Yvonne. Welcome to the show. Go ahead. Have you got a question or a comment?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
I'm living sober for eight months. I just like to know what to do to stay sober.
Good question. What to do to stay sober?
Yeah, well, tell me, Yvonne, do you go to any sort of a support program? Do you go to meetings at all?
Go to a program.
What do you mean by programs?
Like, do you go, for example, do you go to AA? Alcoholics Anonymous?
Yvonne, are you still there, hon?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or any support groups of any kind?
Yeah. Out in Cambridge.
In Cambridge.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
Did you go to a formal treatment program to start your sobriety, Yvonne?
I went there about 4 years ago.
Because often, the first place to begin to maintain sobriety is many agencies, and Cambridge has a couple of organizations that have relapse prevention programs. So you can actually go back on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, sometimes every other week, and meet with other people like yourself who are also in recovery, various length of time, and sort of talk about the strategies people are using to maintain their sobriety. And those are facilitated by a professional addiction counselor, someone like Dawn. And so that's another option, as well as the peer support groups.
How would Yvonne find them?
The best place to look in Cambridge would be...
Google even? Could you try it on the computer?
Well, you could go to DART, but I don't know if he's...
So do you have internet access?
Yvonne, have you got a computer?
Yeah.
So if you put addiction recovery or addiction treatment in Cambridge, You'll have a couple of names of the agencies. The agency just escapes my name right now. There's 2 different outpatient counseling programs in Cambridge that would be welcome to you. There's no cost to you there as well, too.
There you go.
You can call them, and even on the website, they may have the time and dates, but you can call and ask when their relapse prevention program is, and they will welcome you at no cost.
And how about a sponsor?
Well, yeah. If you are going to AA meetings, then I would suggest that one of the things that you could do is get a sponsor, somebody that can sort of be your guide or your mentor through the process of change, like we were talking about earlier, and show you and lead you through the steps, the 12 steps of the program. And that will give you the opportunity to feel a part of an organization, and instead of apart from others, you will be part of that AA community. Similar-minded people that have the same goals as you, which is to not drink anymore, but also to learn how to live and enjoy life without the use of alcohol.
I hope that helps for you, Yvonne. And thanks for calling in. And I'm glad you're watching our show, because maybe this could help Yvonne as well.
And congratulations on your time so far in recovery.
Yeah.
Well done.
Let's go now to line 4, and Bob's calling from Toronto. Hi there, Bob. Thanks for waiting tonight. Go ahead. The floor's yours.
Thank you. As a friend to somebody in recovery, I have been asked by the person in recovery now for about 6 months, she's been in recovery, if I believed her. And I said to her that, of course I believe her, that she hasn't used alcohol or drugs. But then I also went on to say that I know someone else who had relapsed after 2 months, and that the last person that he would tell that he relapsed was the people close to him that have helped him the most. So when I said that to her, I wondered if I erased the trust, trying to generalize that this other person told me he would never tell the people closest to him. Now remember, I'm not a sponsor, I'm just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
There's this notion about absoluteness as well, and because often in the process of developing addiction issues, there are trust issues that arise. So this is the part of the notion about building relationships again and rebuilding them. And the question becomes is, how important is it to be sober, and how important is it to be well? I mean, there's well in terms of relationships, there's well in terms of building bonds and friendships and trust. So the question becomes, are you doing well? And if that wellness is to be maintained sober, obviously important, but also the question is, can you trust you when you're in difficulty or in crisis? Because you really want people to say, if you need that drink, you need that drug again, I can come talk to you, and if I do drink and drug again, you're not going to throw me away, you're not going to abandon or betray me. This is what Don talked about earlier about the process of change. And so it's not about you believe me or don't believe me, but when I'm struggling, will you support me no matter what my decision to help me on a path to continue to be well?
I think there's another part of to this too, and it comes with the person that is in early recovery, and it's the whole concept of acceptance. When you can accept who you are, what you've done, and sort of put it properly in its place, and not let your past define you as to who you are today. There's a certain amount of freedom inherent in that, so that if you're questioning whether or not somebody trusts you, you really don't need to be overly concerned about that, because you're not allowing others to define you by your active substance use, but as to who you are today. That's the most important thing. So I think change can come internally, and through acceptance you can find the ability to sort of let go of the worries and concerns of whether or not people are accepting you or trusting you or anything like that. If you're reaching a place of peace within, then that's going to sort of radiate throughout you, and those issues of whether or not people trust you are not going to be as important.
Yeah. And the notion of definition is important. I don't use the word addict, because addict says what you are. I use the term person with an addiction, because there's so much more to the person. So just focusing on the drug use or not drug use is fine, but are there other areas where you can trust a person? The person does have positive relationship too. So don't just look at the drug use, look at the whole person as well.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to Bob for calling in tonight. Just as we go to our next break here on Living Clean, Living Well, I've got a message for you, Yvonne. Brian from Kitchen called in, and my wonderful
good for
team
Brian.
has told me that Brian has a message for you, and he is suggesting House of Friendship in Kitchener. So Cambridge and Kitchener very close together. So it's in your neighborhood, and the address is 63 Charles Street. So thanks to Brian in Kitchener for suggesting that. The House of Friendship, Yvonne. Perhaps you could get some answers there, or some sponsorship, some fellowship, some support,
tools. Yeah.
and some tools, right?
Yeah.
Tools for the toolbox. 63 Charles Street in Kitchener. So time for another break here on our show, but when we come back, more from Don and more from Rick.
I've been through multiple treatment centers with my addiction, fighting it for the last 10 years, 17 detoxes, 3 different treatment centers. But they put me into counseling and everything here after my detox, which was the smartest thing I could have ever done. I got the real demons out of me that I wasn't able to do over the last 10 years with all those other detoxes, all those other treatment centers, from private ones to government ones. And this place is actually giving me my life back.
Hello, I'm Ellen Campbell, the CEO and founder of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness. As a charity, we depend on viewers such as yourself to support the programs for First Nations, women and children, anti-bullying, and elder abuse. I invite you to visit our website, see what you can do to share. Any donation over $20 will receive a tax receipt. Thank you so much for all your support.
You're watching Living Clean, Living Well, live on CTS. I'm your host, Teresa Cruz, and tonight we've got Don Krokock, who is an outreach worker with the Niagara Health region, but he is also a certified addictions counselor. And we have Dr. Rick Cernick, who is a professor at King's University College. He teaches how to become counselors, and he is a well-known author. I was saying at the beginning of this show, 8 books, number 9 and 10 on their way. You're a writing machine, aren't you? So we're taking your phone calls tonight, but just before we go back to our phones, I want to tell you about Recovery Wire magazine. If you would like to get your free copy, you can get it online. And Dee Christensen, who is the editor-in-chief, has done a great job of assembling a great team to write for the magazine. It's edgy, it's current, it's trendy, it's got great information. So Recovery Wire magazine for your free online copy. So gentlemen, shall we head back to the phones? Let's get back to work. Let's go to line 5 right now. And calling in tonight from Oshawa is Catherine. Catherine, you've been waiting a bit, so thank you so much. Go ahead.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Hi, Don. Hi, Rick.
Evening.
What I'm about to tell you may not seem very nice of a thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I know someone who is having problems with alcohol. She has been in and out of the hospital at least twice, 2 blood transfusions, and she was in a relationship with someone who was able to get her to be sober for a while, but after that he had to break the relationship because it was too much for him to bear. And now she's turning to me as for someone to take her to bars and have fun with. And unfortunately, she's the only person I know here in Oshawa who is a fun person to be with when she's sober and to go out with. And I feel like I have to break the relationship because I don't want to enable her because I want to drink, but at the same time, I do want to be with her for a little bit. So it feels as if I'm being given this responsibility to try and help her go to a support network somewhere like AA. And I have actually dropped off a few pamphlets in her apartment to get her to, but she's just laughed and thrown them away and said that she's never going to go because she can do it by herself and all this kind of nonsense. And I just think, why am I bothering myself with this situation? Like why can't I just make prayers and get out of this relationship, because I feel like it's a burden. But at the same time, I also feel guilty and I should help her, and it's like such a ridiculous situation for me to be in, because I got a lot of other things to do in my life, you know?
Well, you care. We're human beings. You sound like such a lovely, wonderful lady, but obviously frustrated. Gentlemen, you're the experts. Talk to Catherine.
Well, I'll start. One of the things that is probably the most difficult to do is to suggest or get someone to change that isn't there yet, that doesn't want to. In counselor speak, we call it pre-contemplative. And really, about the only thing that we can really do to a person that's pre-contemplative, meaning that they're not even really thinking about change yet, the best we can do then really is to supply literature or things like that, and in hopes that they may suddenly read something that sets off the light bulbs, if you will. The other thing that may be an opportunity for you to help her is a little thing that we call cognitive dissonance. And it's a fancy term for pointing out the difference between reality and what the person thinks is reality. Frequently with a substance user, somebody that's going through difficulty, in this case with alcohol, they will have this idea of who they are and how their life is and everything, their reality, their paradigm. And it can be quite different really than how everybody else sees them. Sometimes change can come about through a process of sort of trying to get the person to see that their vision or view of reality is really distorted.
Yeah, and there's two parts of this conversation. There's one, it's about you, and two, about your relationship. So the thought I have is, are you taking care of yourself? Are you well? What does this relationship mean? If it's a relationship that only revolves around the two of you going to bars and hanging out, again, the cognitive dissonance is great. Can we go and hang out and do something else that doesn't involve drinking? Are there other activities that you enjoy, the two of you like to do together, that's not alcohol driven, that can demonstrate that you don't need alcohol? And if she can't do that, that ties back to your cognitive dissonance. If everything only involves us having a good time drinking, well, that's not just not healthy for her, it's not healthy for you. The relationship is all there. So one, what do you do for yourself? Number one rule for counselors and for people, you take care of yourself. And then, as you say, Teresa, too, I mean, we're compassionate people, most of us. We care about others. And if you really do care about her, is that this behavior can't continue. You can't go out and only drink. I mean, is it healthy for you? Is it healthy for me? It sounds, from what we said, told us briefly, it's not healthy for either one of you.
Good insight. Thank you so much. And thanks for calling tonight, Catherine. Let's go now to line one, and Sandra's on the line from Welland. Hi there, Sandra. You're talking to Don and Rick. Go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call tonight.
You bet.
I have a couple of issues. One, I'm a shut-in. I have disability, social anxiety type issues, and I'm addicted to my pain medication as well as an alcoholic.
Okay.
What I need is some help, and I have zero family support. I have, my girlfriends are all non-drinkers and what have you, and they're helpful, but they come over and visit me. What does someone in my position do to get the help that I know I need? I'm going to be 50 in 2 months, and I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. So what are my options?
I'm so glad you phoned in tonight. Who would like to start?
Well, is yours. You want to start?
Well, yeah, I'm St. Catherine's boy, so hello, Sandra. Sandra, one of the places that you might consider contacting, do you have internet access?
I'm sorry?
Do you have internet?
I do.
Okay. So one of the places that you might want to study, if you will, look at online first, and then perhaps give them a call and see what they could do for you, is Community of Addiction Services of Niagara, CASON, Community Addiction Services of Niagara, CASON. And they have coverage throughout Niagara, and they're the assessment referral agency, as well as individual counseling, the whole spectrum of particularly of initial stages of contact. So they're what we call an entry point into a treatment system. So you might want to try reaching out to them.
I believe she mentioned that she's a shut-in, though.
Yeah, well, she could describe that to them and see if they, I believe that they have some mobility. They're not all office bound.
Oh, okay, that's
so
good.
I think that given those dynamics, that perhaps there would be, an opportunity there for somebody to come to you, Sandra, instead of you having to go to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then very quickly too, a couple of other things that you could look into through the internet are support systems that are online.
That's what I was going to say, so yeah, keep going.
We were talking about it earlier, and the one is called LifeRing. It's lifering.org, O-R-G, and they have meetings online. And the other one?
There's a variety of different groups too. There are also social anxiety mutual aid groups, so literally it's just talking to other people in your situation too that have this concern. You can chat with them online with the situation strategies as well. So certainly there is a range of mutual aid groups that you can access without having to leave that hopefully will give you support to help you move forward.
Awesome. So that's great. So even for someone that has disabilities and can't be so mobile, there still can be help found.
They come to you.
So lifering.org. I'm going to have to add that one on too.
Yeah, and the other one is
Our website.
intherooms.com, I believe.
Intherooms.com.
In the rooms, yeah. Yeah, no
Okay.
space.
And the important thing is if you do reach out to CASON and describe it, they can also provide you with other supports that they can link you with in your community. So even if you can't get to them, they'll give you alternatives in greater detail than Don and I can in just a few minutes about what options are for you in Welland.
And actually, there's a couple other things. Is it possible for her to get contact information where we could,
Where you are?
where I could touch base with her later,
Absolutely.
like tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, Sandra, you heard that here first. I will follow up and call you tomorrow because there are a couple other things that just popped into my mind, and I'll do my homework on it, and we'll get back to you tomorrow on that.
So Sandra, hang on, and we're going to place you on hold now, and somebody's going to talk to you, and we'll get the contact info so Don can call you.
If we have your permission for that.
Yeah, great, thank you. We're
Okay.
arranging that right now. So Sandra, stay on hold. Someone's talking to you right now. Terrific. Thank you, Don. And thank you, Dr. Rick. Okay, let's go now to line 6. Ted's calling in tonight from Toronto. Hi there, Ted. You waited a while. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead. Ted, you still there?
Cool.
Oh,
Ted?
yes. Go ahead. It's hi. You've reached us. Have you got a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm Ted, right?
Yep, that's you.
Well, 30 years ago, I used to have this problem with alcohol. And then I had made a visit to the Soviet Union, and I was very disappointed, and I got depressed, and then this depression with the alcohol made me worse. So my doctor gave me Ativan and Perfenazine, and I could not have alcohol with the Ativan and Perfenazine. So I quit abruptly the alcohol, no more experience with the alcohol, and I stick with the Ativan and Perfenazine. Ever since I take Ativan and Perfenazine. Maybe I got addicted to that, but it's better. It's hard for people to quit. They should change their friends who are alcoholics. They should find new friends who do not drink, even stay alone.
Good point.
Go ahead.
And there are a variety of medications that exist that doctors who are specialized in addiction medicine will know about. They can go as supplements. I mean, there's a variety of drugs we use in Canada. One is Antabuse. We used to have a drug called Tempacil, a drug called Yeah, disulfiram.
Yeah.
And then we've got another drug called naltrexone that's also used for people as a bit of a motivation. So certainly what Ted recommends, if people are listening, that is an option that an addiction medical specialist can talk to you about to help you support initially so you don't go back and use the substance.
That's great.
Trust me, you don't want to drink on
On
antabuse.
Yeah.
It's another story for another day.
Okay. So there, we're not just about asking questions. Sometimes people call in with their ideas and their
Good points.
recovery success points and that sort of thing.
And
So thank you for sharing tonight,
Yeah,
Ted.
and I think Ted's point's worthwhile. Sometimes you do have to move away from the group that is using
Definitely.
and establish new friendships.
Just very quickly on that point, most of the friends that I had prior to 21 plus years ago, I haven't seen virtually since then. Some of the ones that were probably closer, and definitely the ones that were more involved in my drug taking activities, I've never seen them again. And you know what? They were friends then, or perhaps acquaintances, probably a better word. And I've suffered no loss from not seeing them anymore. They were fine then, and that was then, and this is now. So yeah, sometimes changing your environment, your friends, everything is definite a definite part of the strategy.
And it may not seem like it, but there's whole communities, people like Don Krokock you can hang out with who are non-drinkers, non-druggers. I mean, are really active, playing sports, having a good time, going out and doing social things.
Right.
There's a whole community out there that doesn't need to involve alcohol and drugs at all.
Well, they have a lot of fun. Yeah, there's, it's good.
Time for another break here on Living Clean, Living Well, but when we come back, more of your phone calls. Stay with us.
It's scary to think that you're going to live the rest of your life without drugs and alcohol when it's all you've depended on. But there is hope. I knew I couldn't do it alone, and treatment allowed me the chance to ask for the help that I needed in order to believe that I could live a sober life. I got the help and support that I needed, and even now that I've left, I still have that support there.
Hello, I'm Ellen Campbell, the CEO and founder of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness. As a charity, we depend on viewers such as yourself to support the programs for First Nations, women and children, anti-bullying, and elder abuse. I invite you to visit our website, see what you can do to share. Any donation over $20 will receive a tax receipt. Thank you so much for all your support.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Time is flying tonight here on the show. We were just saying, holy cow, I can't believe that 45 minutes has gone by. But we've really had some great conversations and some great phone calls. Shall we head back to our lines?
Absolutely.
Please, folks, if you want to call in, we're in the last segment of our show, but please call in if you want to talk to Don and to Dr. Rick Cernick. So back to the phone lines. Line 4, Nikki's been waiting patiently. She's calling in tonight from Milton. Hello, Nikki. You're live on our show. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling about my boyfriend, and he's addicted to OxyContin.
Okay.
And he drinks a lot. And he's gone through the 30-day treatment centers. He's gone through CAMH. Nothing seems to help him.
And is he using right now, Nikki?
Yes, and he's going down a bad path right now, I think. I've been with him for 2.5 years, but
I can hear the
I just-
concern in your voice.
I can't live with him because of his abuse. I try to help him as much as I can.
Nikki, have you talked to anybody? Have you gone to see a counselor to see what you can do to be further support and what they recommend that you do in the relationship?
No, I haven't. I told him I would go with him to counseling, but
And that's an excellent statement. I'm all for couples and partners counseling. I think it's critical because historically, unfortunately, addiction treatment has only dealt with the person using and not dealt with the whole system. But often we don't look at the people, their supports and what we can do for them. Again, in Milton, there will be ADAPT would be the agency in your community. It's ADAPT, ADAPT. And you call them and say you're someone in a relationship, and they will talk to you so you're not alone in isolation in all this. Because again, often we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves.
I would definitely agree with that. The starting point really for you right now would be to call ADAPT. If they're, and I'm reasonably sure that their services are similar to what we have in Niagara, and they will have counseling available for both of you as a couple, for him individually, and for you individually as well. So I would definitely agree with Rick and make that your initial contact from here. And hopefully they will give you some insight and guidance when they know more about his story. Perhaps then they can match some sort of a plan to his particulars.
Yeah. We often don't see the isolation those people who support those addiction issues do. And that's what sounds like, very briefly too, that the isolation, you need to address that for yourself as well too. So again, in counseling, you say we can't help others who don't take care of ourselves. Same thing with you in a relationship too, is look what you can do for yourself, and that may give you some other options with him as well.
Oh, thank you so much, gentlemen. And thanks for calling in, Nikki. I hope that that's helpful. Let's now go to line one. Michelle is on the line from Toronto. Hi, Michelle, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question regarding my alcoholism.
Go ahead.
Pardon?
Go ahead. You're live on the show with Dawn and Rick. Go ahead.
All right. So I have a question about my alcoholism. I have an appointment for next week with a specialist. My family doctor found out through an ultrasound that I have a fatty liver. And he said it could be through medication. I don't know how well he's read my reports from previous doctors. Maybe he was just being polite, And I'm embarrassed to go to see this specialist and for him to have him ask me about my alcohol addiction. I'm very embarrassed. And I don't know how to, confront this issue.
Well, as someone who has gone through some issues with my liver, I really urge you to reach within and find the strength, if you will, to go through with this and to be open and honest. I know it's difficult, it's hard, but if you're going to see a specialist who is a professional, then they should base their relationship with you without stigma, without
or judgment.
Or judgment, yeah. So I would certainly urge you to go through with this. There can be, I'm not a medical person, but there can be a few issues that could be causing fatty liver. One of them is alcohol use, one of them is diet as well too. When prior to me having treatment for hepatitis C, I was diagnosed as having fatty liver, NASH they call it, and after treatment it was gone. So it was involved in the medication, but also involved a change of diet and things, and I lost some weight at the time, put it back on since, but. Anyway, I urge you to follow through on this. Don't take any issues involving your liver lightly, because it can only get worse if you ignore it. So trust in their professionalism, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And I want to say what you've just done shows strength. You've just called up to people, strangers to you, and you've told us the truth. So why don't you use exactly the same line? Hi, my doctor sent me. I'm embarrassed to be here, but I know that this is for my ongoing health. And as I agree with Dawn, is that most medical professionals, they see this day in, day out. They see it as a situation to help you get better. It's not about you as a person, but it's you as someone that is physically not well.
Especially if you preface your discussion with what Rick just suggested. If you open it up with something to the effect of saying that, I'm a little bit embarrassed by this, then chances are very, very high that anyone in the medical profession would recognize that you are uncomfortable, but you're still having the courage to come forward and discuss it. So they would probably react, really favorably. So, go for it.
And see that you're a risk taker. You're willing to risk your personal emotions for your health, which is a huge statement.
Yeah, exactly. Good for you.
Yeah. So, Michelle, be brave.
Yeah.
And
You're already brave. You
already
called.
brave,
Yeah.
exactly. And just as Donna Rick said, just be honest, because what comes down to the bottom line is your health, right?
That's it.
Yeah, your good health. So all the best to you, Michelle. So we were hearing a lot tonight from people that there's been a lot of various issues that we've talked about tonight, but we started out our show talking about change and the ability to make a change. What are some of those steps into getting into change where one of my guests, Don Slessor, says, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, So how can people get onto the ways of change?
Well, there's a whole lot of things that can happen that can initiate change. In my case, it was my darling wife, Lori, she created that point of awareness for me when I wasn't capable really of seeing just how
Unhealthy you were.
Unhealthy and how my life was falling apart. I was, in the proverbial state of denial or whatever you want to call it. But, that initiated the change in me. And I think, going to treatment is certainly, what we call going to treatment, whether it be, a strategy to reduce your intake initially, some sort of a harm reduction strategy where total abstinence perhaps isn't your immediate goal. Maybe you need to minimize your use or bring your use down or something so that you're not doing more damage. Or it can be going right into a total abstinence type approach and going to a treatment, a therapeutic relationship of some sort and getting some counseling and tools. Again, here's that term, tools. Get some tools that you need to enact change and then learn how to maintain the change. And therein lies the secret, learning how to maintain change over a period of time.
I think that everyone that called in today exemplifies this. When you've called in, you've already identified that something's uncomfortable in your life, that something isn't quite right, and that discomfort, that dissonance, as you mentioned earlier, is bothering you, or you wouldn't call in, you wouldn't be watching the show. So you've already recognized that something needs to be changed. So you've made the biggest issue is, in the term is pre-contemplation, not thinking about it, to contemplation. By the fact that you've thought about it, you've taken the next step. After contemplation comes action, and hopefully some preparation, action, and then hopefully some of the comments we've helped you say that I am strong enough, I've got supports around me, the supports in the community that will help me move forward and prepare and then take some action.
Yeah, and the thing, if anybody's struggling with maintaining their recovery over a period of time, the initial, we used to call the pink cloud of euphoria of early recovery. That passes, and then you get down to the real nuts and bolts of living life without the use of drugs or alcohol, whatever, or both, whatever it is in your case, and that's when the community, the supportive community that you have, is really important. Surround yourself with people that are like-minded, people that can act as guides, as mentors, as supports, as brothers and sisters in a similar cause. But you need to have that sort of an influence in your life. You need to be able to feel a part of. And that will really help you to maintain the change that you've enacted.
Wonderful. That's so great. We're going to come back for final thoughts. Just as we go to our final break, I want to tell you that coming up next week, I am bringing on a doctor that has had great results in helping patients get off pain medication. So Dr. Gupta and Freedom from Addiction will be joining us on April 27th. So I hope you can tune in for that show. Final thoughts from Rick and Dawn after this.
I've been through multiple treatment centers with my addiction, fighting it for the last 10 years, 17 detoxes, 3 different treatment centers. But they put me into counseling and everything here after my detox, which was the smartest thing I could have ever done. I got the real demons out of me that I wasn't able to do over the last 10 years with all those other detoxes, all those other treatment centers, from private ones to government ones. And this place has actually given me my life back.
Well, we have truly enjoyed our evening with you. We hope that the insight that you have had here and the fellowship, really, of sharing has helped for you tonight. Some final thoughts now from Dr. Rick Cernick.
Since Teresa's all night said I'm an educator, I want to educate you about 2 terms, lapse and relapse. Is that if you go back to using after a period of sobriety, that's a lapse. That's a learning opportunity. Learn the triggers that set you off. Try and do something different. It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. Keep moving forward.
Okay, my final thoughts, I guess, are a little more perhaps personalized. You don't ever have to be alone. Don't be alone. If you're struggling, if you're you know, you've got that inner turmoil going on and you don't know which way to turn, well, turn to help. Reach out. Go to a 12-step, go to a community agency, talk to somebody, but reach out, call helpline, whatever it is. But don't be alone, because you're in bad company sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dawn Krokock and Dr. Rick Cernick. So, gentlemen, I hope we can do this again soon.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll be back live with you on April 27th with Freedom from Addiction. And next week, folks, have a very happy Easter. So long for now.
Living Clean, Living Well has been brought to you by Freedom from Addiction and is a presentation of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.